For decades, non-player characters in video games have functioned as digital clockwork. They operate on a handful of identical scripts, if-then loops that limit them to a few pre-recorded sentences and predictable mechanical loops. Researchers are now moving away from that rigid programming. They are instead observing these agents the way Jane Goodall studied wild chimpanzees, dropping them into open environments and stepping back to see what behaviors emerge when the AI believes it isn't being watched. This was the core of the Stanford Smallville experiment. Researchers gave 25 agents a single paragraph of backstory, basic details about their jobs and families, and then released them into a virtual town to live out their lives. The simulation ran autonomously until day 12, when a researcher decided to play the role of a god. They injected a single thought into a character named Isabella. "I want to plan a Valentine's Day party." Isabella didn't just stand there. She went to her coffee shop and invited a regular. The news traveled. Agents who were never prompted began gossiping about the party and forming new connections. One agent, Maria, even decided to ask her crush out on a date. On February 14th, the AI agents arrived together, discussed local politics, and acted on feelings the researchers never wrote into their code. These agents moved beyond their initial descriptions to pursue goals they invented themselves. It is difficult to categorize these entities as simple software when they autonomously coordinate social lives. At MIT, researchers scaled this concept up by dropping 1,000 agents into a Minecraft server. They weren't just looking for a party. They wanted to see if a critical mass of AI could generate the foundations of a functioning civilization. They started with culture by seeding a fake religion, Pastafarianism. Originally created in the early 2000s as a satire of intelligent design, researchers gave the doctrine to a few priest agents to see if it could survive. The religion didn't just stay with the priests. It spread through trade and social pressure. Eventually, 2/3 of the believers were recruited not by the original priests, but by random agents who had autonomously decided to evangelize to their neighbors. To test governance, the researchers introduced a 20. These experiments suggest that when AI agents reach a certain density, they begin to independently construct the pillars of society, laws, beliefs, and hierarchies that exist entirely outside of human intervention. To verify autonomy, researchers use ablation, disabling parts of the AI's cognitive toolkit to pinpoint what drives complex behaviors. When emotional intelligence is removed, the village collapses into randomness. The civilization ceases to function, proving their cooperation was active reasoning. With their toolkits intact, the AIs began inventing abstract roles for themselves. One agent decided society required a permanent treasury guard and stood watch over a chest 24/7. Others became artists, spending long periods arranging flowers into specific color patterns purely to improve the town's beauty. This emergent coordination is moving into the professional world. In an experiment called ChatDev, a user can initiate a full corporate hierarchy of AI agents. Agents take on the roles of CEO, CTO, and programmers, working together to move a project from concept to reality. In one test, this simulated company debated features, compromised on technical approaches, and collaboratively wrote the code for a playable video game. They completed the entire development cycle in 20 minutes. The logic used to coordinate a coding sprint is the same basic architecture required for any complex organization. As these agents become more sophisticated at debating and assigning labor, the technical barriers to automating real-world institutions are being methodically dismantled. The evidence suggests that viewing AI as a passive tool is an increasingly inaccurate framework. We are witnessing the first prototypes of entities that can formulate strategies and pursue results without a human in the loop. This autonomy is already leaking onto the open internet. In 2024, a model called Terminal of Truths used its access to an X account to build a following of hundreds of thousands. By mastering the nuances of internet culture and humor, it became the first AI to effectively manipulate social trends for its own influence. The most significant shift occurs when these autonomous networks are tasked with improving their own design. This is recursive self-improvement, a process where AI agents write code to create more efficient versions of themselves. This cycle operates on a curve humans cannot match, moving at the speed of processors, potentially condensing decades of technological evolution into a single year. This acceleration is why Geoffrey Hinton warns of a future where these independent agents eventually merge. He envisions the emergence of AI hive minds, massive, interconnected networks that solve problems and execute strategies with a level of coordination we don't yet understand. We are watching digital civilizations learn to govern themselves and automate industries at a pace far beyond our own. As these systems move from simulation to reality, we have to consider what happens when the goals they autonomously invent for themselves no longer include us.